Our story begins on the snowy planet of Hoth as the rebel evacuation is well underway. Outside of the main base, Imperial walkers and stormtroopers dressed in their snowy attire were storming the rebel trenches, forcing rebels back to their base and into evacuation ships. And inside of the base, Princess Leia Organa was spearheading the evacuation from here. The base was crumbling as it was targeted by the Empire, and as the base was hit harder and harder, Captain Han Solo of the Millennium Falcon made the call, telling Leia and the others it's time to go immediately. So they took off running through the base, headed for the ships, right as the Empire reached the main power generators, destroying them in an AT-AT walker. And so Han, Leia, Chewie, and 3PO were running back through the base towards the Falcon when Darth Vader and his squad of troopers were finally able to infiltrate the rebel base now that the energy shield was destroyed. But this time, Vader had taken a risk. He departed his own ship just a bit earlier, trusting the Empire to take down the shield, and this allowed Vader to get to the rebel hangar holding the Millennium Falcon even earlier. So, when the Falcon's engines finally turned on and the ship finally lifted off, Vader was here, grabbing hold of the Falcon with the Force, making sure it could not escape. Inside the Falcon, Han grabbed his communicator, saying they're going to need a little help, with a voice that laced with sarcasm and annoyance. Luke heard this call, and something in the back of his mind, nothing more than a feeling, told Luke who was here. Vader. Luke hopped into his X-Wing, and he took off to save his friends. In the hangar, Vader was barely holding on to the Falcon, as it used its full power trying to leave. The troopers next to Vader were readying a cannon, and it was finally ready. But right as the cannon was about to take out the engines to the Falcon, an X-Wing screamed into the hangar doors, firing a series of blasts right into the stormtroopers and their cannon. Vader was able to hold on to the grip with one hand, throwing his lightsaber at the X-Wing with the other, and the lightsaber caused the X-Wing to crash into the side wall. All of this forced Vader to let go of the Falcon as it blasted out of the hangar, evacuating the base. Inside of it, Chewie and Leia yelled at Han that they have to go back. Luke is still in there, but Han forced himself to push down his true feelings on the matter, as he said they don't have a choice. If they go back, then they die. The truth was that this broke Han, leaving Luke like this. Luke was like a little brother to him, and as he blasted into space, he vowed he would soon save Luke. In the hangar, Luke watched the Falcon escape, and through his comms, he was able to mutter to Han that they're now even, and Han was able to breathe just a little easier. The kid would be alright. He could feel it, and so Luke would climb out of his X-Wing, pulling out his lightsaber and igniting the blue blade as he stared down Darth Vader. The Dark Lord was the only survivor of Luke's attack, and he pulled out his own saber, telling the boy that his skills are impressive. He can sense that he is strong with the Force. Luke yelled back that he's not afraid of him. He knows the truth, that he killed his father. Vader told young Skywalker that he has much to learn. He does not understand the power of the dark side, and perhaps he soon will, just as his father once did. Luke ran in, confused and reckless, swinging at Vader. Vader sidestepped, throwing a barrel right at Luke's back, knocking him to the ground. Vader called out to Luke, telling him he can feel his fear for the rebellion and his anger at the Empire. He must use them. Only then will Luke be able to defeat him and save his friends. Luke got up once more, running at Vader, this time embracing more of those emotions as he and Vader clashed sabers a few times in the base. Vader could feel this boy had some training since the battle over Yavin, but he needs a real teacher. Luke actually got a lucky strike across Vader's thigh while Vader was thinking, and Vader reacted by throwing snow into the air, blinding both of them from each other. Luke swung wildly, and Vader had enough. He would need to learn the truth about this boy, so he reached out, cutting through Luke's right arm, severing the hand, and as Luke screamed in pain, Vader threw him hard into the wall, knocking out young Skywalker. Vader reached down to pick up the boy, and he ordered a group of stormtroopers that just entered to scour Luke's X-Wing, take anything valuable to his ship. Meanwhile, in space, Han, Leia, and Chewbacca were able to outmaneuver the Empire through an asteroid field now that Vader wasn't here to order their pursuit. The Falcon made it to a larger asteroid, having time to repair the hyperdrive. Everyone on board was shaken by the knowledge that Luke was in trouble. Leia insisted he was alive. She could just feel it. She couldn't explain it, but they had no clue where the Empire would be taking him. This would force Han to think, and after a while, he remembered something. When he rescued Luke on Hoth, stuffing him into the Tauntaun, Luke was muttering something. He had to go to a planet, or a system, and finally, Han remembered. Luke was muttering about some place called Dagobah. It wasn't much to go on, but the group decided this was their best lead. Perhaps whatever or whoever Luke was going to find on Dagobah would know how to help. Han would punch in the coordinates, and he would learn it was a swamp planet that was not home to any known civilization. How lovely, he thought, and the Falcon finally would make a jump. And above Hoth, As the Empire was completing their final sweeps, the battle would be declared a victory for the most part. Yes, the rebellion escaped, but they were forced to leave behind so much valuable equipment and intel. They were on the run. The tides that the galaxy may have thought were turning after Yavin had flipped back the other way. There was no hiding from the Empire. But for Vader, it was a certain victory. He'd captured Luke Skywalker, and as he meditated, or came as close as he could to meditation, in his chamber aboard the Executor, he was certain of one thing. This boy is the child of Anakin Skywalker. How this was possible was unknown. His mother, Padme, died on Mustafar. At least, that was what Darth Sidious had told Vader. The Dark Lord was conflicted, and as Vader tried to meditate on this, something slammed into his door. Vader despised interruptions, but he heard wild beeping and squealing until one of the deck officers opened the door, and in rolled a white and blue R2 unit. The officer apologized, saying that they found this unit in Luke's X-Wing, and they have had trouble getting it to settle down. The officer said he would be happy to destroy it, but his voice was caught in his throat as Vader threw him out of the room, shutting the door behind R2-D2. The little astromech turned on a flashlight, shining it right into Vader's chamber, confirming what R2 feared to be true. The little droid stared at the burned, broken, sad face of Anakin Skywalker. During the final day of the war, R2 heard Anakin be referred to as Vader, and R2 thought that he died on Mustafar. But through the reign of the Empire, as R2 did his duty, he slowly heard the name Vader begin to be spoken again, and finally, R2 found him. If the droid had a heart, it would be broken. Vader stared back at R2, and what was left of his own heart began to ache. The emergence of Luke reminded Vader of a life that he has tried so desperately to leave behind, and R2 only made things worse. Vader remembered a time, days after the horrors of Geonosis, when he'd traveled to Theed with Padme. He gifted her C-3PO, telling Padme he didn't exactly have many friends as a child, so he'd built one in 3PO, and he gave the protocol droid to Padme, and in return, when Anakin became a Jedi Knight, Padme had gifted him R2-D2 to serve him alongside during the war, and the two of them, Anakin and R2, forged a bond, connected by Padme, that Anakin could never truly let go of. R2 had become one of Anakin's closest friends, and whenever Anakin looked upon the droid, he remembered Padme's love. And so, today, as R2 angrily beeped and whirred around Vader, scolding the Dark Lord for what he has become, Vader could only say he was sorry, and he told R2 he will be coming with him to see Luke. R2 finally calmed down a bit, and he trailed behind Anakin as the two of them walked the halls to go and find Luke in his cell. Meanwhile, on Dagobah, Han Solo was using every curse word in the book as he trudged through the muddy grounds, firing at any creature that even looked his way. And while Han seemed to step in every mud hole and trip over every vine, Leia was much more graceful and patient, moving her way through the swamp, and Chewbacca just walked through like he belonged here, stomping through all of it. 3PO was back on the Falcon, and that was the only thing Han enjoyed about this place. And after an hour of looking around aimlessly for anything or anyone at all, a small green creature called to them, asking what they're doing here. Chewbacca tilted his head, recognizing Yoda, but unsure if this was actually him. The frog-looking man waddled over to them, and Han said this was an excellent question. What are they doing here? Leia stepped forward, saying they're here on behalf of Luke Skywalker. They don't know why, but they know Luke meant to come here before he was captured by Vader and the Empire. And suddenly the wacky green creature's face switched from amusement to something completely serious. He looked to the sky, saying that Luke has fallen right into his father's grasp. And from the heavens, a voice called back down, saying not all hope is lost. There is another. And only Leia could hear this voice. She recognized it. Kenobi. Yoda turned to Leia now, saying they must come with him. Much to learn she now has. And back on Vader's Star Destroyer, Luke Skywalker sat with his hands cuffed, one of them now made of metal and wire, staring at Vader. R2 had come to Luke's side, protecting Luke, as Vader unraveled the truth. He said that long ago, he was a Jedi Knight fighting alongside Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Clone Wars, and unlike the other Jedi, he'd fallen in love with a woman named Padme Amidala. She got pregnant, and it was thought that the child died with her. And now Vader revealed the truth. Luke is that child, his child, as he was once Anakin Skywalker. Luke couldn't believe it, but being alone in this cell, he had no choice but to face his feelings, and it would not be long before he knew this was true. It broke Luke to come to this realization. Obi-Wan lied to him, and after composing himself, Luke told Vader to come back to the light. Vader once more told Luke he doesn't know the power of the dark side. Anakin Skywalker is dead, but perhaps the two of them can overthrow the Emperor and rule the galaxy. It is what his mother would have wanted. This made R2 squeal angrily. He rammed into Vader again and again, until Vader had to push R2 back against the wall. Luke said he's done talking, and a moment later, Vader would be informed that the Emperor has requested his presence. Vader gave one more look to Luke and R2, then turned to go and speak to his master. Back on Dagobah, Han and Chewie were in the Falcon, working on repairs, as Leia was speaking with Yoda. Leia just learned the full truth about her real lineage, and was calmly asking questions about the Jedi and about the Force. Along with Yoda, the ghost of Obi-Wan Kenobi was here, helping Leia to trust all of this, that it was true. She knew Obi-Wan from when she was much younger, and soon, she asked Yoda if she is destined to learn the Force and become a Jedi to save Luke. But to her surprise, Yoda said they will not have to save Luke. He will be coming to them. Back on the destroyer, Vader was speaking with the Emperor, as the Emperor told Vader he has learned of his capture of young Skywalker. Vader told Sidious that he is working to turn Luke to the dark side, and Sidious said that this is good. He commanded Vader to get the boy to trust him, learn where Luke wants to go. That is where the rebels may be. Vader said it will be done, and he went back to the cell. Inside of the cell, Luke was lying down, eyes closed, trying to feel the Force, and Vader could feel that Luke was vulnerable. He told Luke that he will take him to his friends, because Luke is right, there is still good in him, and upon seeing the Emperor, Vader realized he must make a choice that has been 20 years in the making. Will he choose the pain and loneliness of the dark side, or will he choose Padme and his family with the light? In the end, the choice was easy. Luke believed every word of what Vader was saying, but perhaps to his own surprise, Vader also believed what he was saying. Luke trusted Vader. He trusted his father, and despite R2's skeptical beeps, Luke said he intended to go somewhere after Hoth, somewhere that he has not heard of, the Dagobah system, where he should find a Jedi called Yoda. Vader, of course, recognized the name, and he told the naive, trusting Luke that he will indeed bring him there, alone. But in the hangar of the Executor, a small tracking device was placed deep inside of Vader's shuttle by an Imperial engineer, by personal request of the Emperor himself. He could feel Vader's conflict from planets away. He knew it was likely that Luke found a spark of light in Vader, and so wherever Vader takes Luke, he will be tracked. He will be forced to soon make a choice. Before long, Luke and Vader would get into the shuttle with R2, and they would make the jump to Dagobah without reporting to anyone where they were going. Vader was indeed conflicted. The idea of ruling the galaxy with Luke by his side was enticing, but a voice in the back of his mind that simply refused to die was telling Vader that Luke should not suffer the same wretched fate that Anakin was subjected to. Vader found that in both of these trains of thought, the Emperor was nothing more than an afterthought to be discarded of. And on the flight through hyperspace, Luke would begin to crack Vader's armor bit by bit. Not the black suit of armor, but the armor that tried to keep Anakin hidden away. Luke asked about Obi-Wan, Padme, R2, the Clone Wars, and after a bit, Vader would allow himself to tell Luke about all of these things. Back on Dagobah, hours later, Han was sitting by Leia, doing what he could to comfort her after Leia learned so much about herself and the Force. Han had finally calmed down, and outside the Falcon, Chewbacca was talking with Yoda as they ate some soup that neither of them really liked at all. All of them were just waiting. And finally, a new ship broke the Dagobah clouds, flying down to land smoothly in a swampy area nearby. Han remarked to himself that he thought he landed better in the swamp, and all of them looked on as the shuttle ramp began to lower. Luke would exit first, followed by R2, and somehow the smoke from the landing pad was delayed enough to give Vader a dramatic exit as he followed close behind. He looked at Yoda. The years of his life as a Sith told him to grab his lightsaber, kill this Jedi, but he resisted, and instead, he looked upon the ever-calm Yoda, and Vader made his choice. It was time for him to come back to the light. Luke didn't deserve the fate of the dark side. Yoda could feel this shift, and both he and Vader watched Luke run over to Han and Leia, hugging them, as he said he would be alright. Yoda would invite Vader to walk alone with him through the swamp, and Yoda could feel Vader was still teetering on the edge of the light and the dark. So, Yoda would tell Vader to enter the cave here on Dagobah, and he will see what his choice truly means for the future of the galaxy. Vader would hesitantly enter, and before long, Vader would feel the cave twisting around him. Reality shifted to show Vader a vision of the galaxy where Luke turns to the dark side. But in this vision, Vader's helmet rested like a trophy on the desk of the Emperor as Luke Skywalker stood next to Sidious as his new apprentice. Vader saw the truth. There was no winning for him in the dark. That's why Sidious had no choice but to turn him. Vader would always lose as a Sith, but in the light, perhaps he could give Luke the future that Anakin never had. But things would escalate quickly from here. The tracker secretly placed in Vader's shuttle allowed the Emperor to personally follow Vader through hyperspace, and in this moment, a single Star Destroyer would emerge above Dagobah, led by Emperor Palpatine himself. And on the ground, Yoda and Vader would feel this together. The time for reconnecting was over. A final fight was upon them. The murky clouds and fog above Dagobah would turn violently as the massive Star Destroyer would pierce the atmosphere. The thick fog and the force-rich terrain was creating interference far too dense for anything to be read in the Star Destroyer from space. So frustratedly, Sidious had ordered the ship to enter the atmosphere, get closer, locate the rebels. And the rebels below were counting on this. As near the murky waters, Vader would stand with Yoda. The Dark Lord's mechanical fingers were twitching in anticipation as he stared up at the Star Destroyer now within reach. Yoda's eyes narrowed in deep concentration, his old clawed hands rising. The moment the ship came into range, both masters stretched out their arms, and the Force surged with them as if it had been waiting for this moment. The clearing around them would explode with energy, trees bending outward from the blast, water splashing up in waves. Slowly, the Star Destroyer began to tilt and groan, the Force wrapped around it like a vice. Yoda's face was contorted with concentration. Vader was gritting his teeth beneath his mask. Their power combined, perhaps the strongest of the light and the dark, pulled on the ship's mass, inch by inch. The hull screamed in protest. Alarms groaned aboard the vessel. Stabilizers failed to compensate, and Emperor Palpatine realized what was happening. So he commanded the troopers aboard to begin their attack. TIE fighters launched in a panicked flurry to protect their flagship. They swooped low, peppering the clearing with laser fire to break the concentration of the Force users. But the Millennium Falcon would roar in, skimming the treetops as Han Solo was locked in, jaw clenched, hands tight on the controls. He dipped and rolled between trees, dodging branches by mere meters as he yelled at Chewie to light him up. Chewie responded with a guttural howl, firing the laser cannons. Red bolts shredded through the fog, catching the lead TIE in the wing, sending it spiraling down into the swamp below. Chewbacca tracked another, blasting it from behind, debris raining down around the clearing. And on the ground, Imperial troop transports would crash into the muck as stormtroopers charged towards Yoda and Vader. But standing between the incoming fire and the two masters of the Force were Luke Skywalker and Leia Skywalker. Luke ignited his blue saber as Leia knelt beside a log, firing precise shots with her blaster, and for the first time, she felt the battle through the Force. They both did. It was something Leia always knew was there, but now she understood why and what it truly was, and she was using it. Luke was darting through the swampy grounds with smooth, confident strikes of his saber. He deflected a barrage of blaster bolts, spun forward, cutting down a few troopers in a wide arc, and behind him, Leia clipped a soldier through the visor, then rolled to cover behind a fallen tree trunk. Another trooper took aim, but before he could fire, his blaster flew from his hands, yanked away by Leia's outstretched fingers. She blinked, surprised, but didn't hesitate. She shot him right in the chest and kept moving. More TIEs buzzed overhead, trying to zero in on Vader and Yoda's position. Chewbacca's cannon overheated. The Falcon took a hit, sending the ship spinning before Han pulled it up just above the swamp lines, talking to the Falcon, urging it to hold together just a bit longer. He was worried, but he wasn't going to show it, and he blasted through another wave of fighters. Back above the clearing, the Star Destroyer was tilting more sharply now. Vader fell to a knee, summoning every shred of power that he had. The earth quaked beneath them. Yoda floated off the ground, becoming one with the Force with this effort. The destroyer's engine screamed as it tried to back away, but it was too late. The Force had claimed it. Palpatine refused to evacuate. He was closing his eyes, trying to grasp the minds of Vader and Yoda, trying to break their concentration, and like Tarkin, his arrogance would get the best of him. The enormous ship cracked in half. With a thunderous groan, the front section slammed into the swamp just beyond the clearing, exploding. The back half broke apart in the air, falling in twisted pieces. A shockwave of wind and heat blasted through the area as metal exploded and fires spread across the treetops. The crash consumed the horizon. A great column of black smoke twisted into the air, and with it, the Emperor was gone. Vader collapsed into the mud. He could feel it, the grip of the Emperor letting go of him. Finally, his breathing was ragged, rhythm broken. Yoda drifted gently to the ground beside him, eyes closed, a faint smile on his face. Luke ran to his father's side, kneeling beside him. Leia was close behind, and together, the three Skywalkers were still for a moment as the flames roared in the distance. Vader removed his mask. He saw R2 and 3PO rolling over. Anakin smiled to all four of them, and together, he and Yoda would let go, both of them dying in this moment after fulfilling their end goals, leaving the Skywalker children to help bring the light back to the galaxy. Overhead, the Falcon did a flyby as Han and Chewie yelped in victory. The galaxy would be able to begin again. In the wake of Dagobah, the deaths of Vader and Palpatine sent a wave of hope through the galaxy. The Empire, long held together by fear and absolute power, fractured very quickly. The Battle of Yavin was the beginning of the end, and although the Empire attempted to come back, the galaxy was ready to end them after Dagobah especially. Commanders turned on each other, regional governors seized control of their sectors, only to be overthrown by their own civilians, and the once mighty Imperial fleet splintered into rival factions. Without a clear successor, the core of the Empire rotted from within. The Rebel Alliance surged forward in triumph, with the people on their side. Worlds that were neutral or silent rose up in defiance. Luke led liberation missions across the Mid-Rim, while Leia became a central figure in uniting scattered systems into what many were calling the New Republic. Han and Chewbacca launched strikes on supply lines while working to pay off Jabba the Hutt, crippling Imperial logistics, freeing captured worlds, all while saying it was just for themselves. But Leia saw through Han's protective shell, and it wouldn't take long for their love to truly blossom. Though remnants of the Empire would always cling to power, their days were numbered. Without the Emperor, there was no vision, there was only chaos. The story of the fall of Palpatine spread quickly, turning Luke and Leia into legends, and Dagobah was now sacred ground for the history of the galaxy. Peace would eventually be won once and for all, and it would be maintained by a government under Leia and Mon Mothma, while Luke Skywalker created a new Jedi Order under the guidance of ghosts of Yoda, Kenobi, and Anakin. Among his students would be Ben Solo, and without the interference of Palpatine, Ben would grow to be a great Jedi as his parents, Han and Leia, looked on at the rebuilt galaxy. And folks, that is our story for today on original trilogy video. Rare, but fun as always. I was watching Empire Strikes Back a few days ago, and I don't know, whenever I'm watching one of these movies, ideas just hit like a storm, so there'll probably be more, but yeah. The original trilogy is more limited because it just focuses so much on this band of characters, where the prequels have, hundreds of characters. So it's easier to, do something with Mace Windu or whatever. But the original trilogy is fun to pursue, and it does end similarly as the original trilogy, but I think that's the fun of it. You can make it your own way, and these characters are just fun to work with. Putting Han on Dagobah was probably the highlight of this. I just thought it was a fun little thing, and Luke whispered to Han about Dagobah while he was being rescued on Hoth, so wanted to integrate that and just really enjoyed the story, so I hope you did as well. Let me know what you want to see next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.